So, have you seen how AWS has updated their pricing lately? It's getting a bit tricky to navigate.
Yeah, I noticed that too. They seem to be adding more tiers and options, making it harder to compare directly with others like Azure or GCP.
Absolutely. They're trying to make it so you can't just pick the cheapest option anymore. You need to really understand what your workload looks like before you commit. And then there's always the reserved instances versus spot instances debate.
Right, especially when you consider the variability in demand and cost savings over time.
Exactly. And don't forget about all the hidden costs. Like data transfer fees, those can really add up depending on where your users are located. Azure aims to handle this better with some of its global network features.
That could be useful for our international clients indeed.
Definitely. Plus, GCP has some interesting initiatives around sustainability, which might appeal to companies looking to green their tech footprint. Although, let's face it, those claims often come with asterisks attached.
True, we need to scrutinize such claims closely.
Agreed. Anyway, one thing that bugs me is how hard it is to get a straightforward apples-to-apples comparison between these providers. Their websites are designed to push you into using their calculators and tools, which often obscure real differences.
That does sound frustrating. I have spent hours trying to line things up manually.
Yeah, and even then, there's no guarantee you got everything right because each provider hides certain costs in different places. Take database services, AWS RDS, and Azure SQL Database both claim similar performance, but under the hood they work quite differently.
I see what you mean now. We should probably create a detailed matrix ourselves for better clarity.
Good idea. But remember, at the end of the day, it's not just about finding the cheapest solution. It's about picking the one that aligns best with your long-term architecture goals and doesn't leave you vulnerable down the road.
Makes sense. Long-term stability over short-term cost savings sounds wise.
Absolutely. And another thing. Absolutely. And another thing to consider is the scalability options provided by AWS versus Azure. Have you had a chance to look into that?
Not in great detail, but I know they both offer auto-scaling features.
Sure, but the way they implement it differs quite a bit. AWS has EC2 auto-scaling and elastic load balancing, which are pretty robust. But Azure has its own take with virtual machine scale sets and application gateway.
That's true. The implementation details can affect how easily we can scale our services.
Definitely. For example, with WS, you can set up scaling policies based on specific metrics like CPU usage or network traffic. Azure also supports this, but their approach integrates well with Kubernetes, which might be more beneficial if we're heading in that direction.
I see. Integrating with Kubernetes could be a significant factor for us.
Exactly. Exactly. Also, think about the ease of managing those scale sets once they're up and running. AWS offers CloudFormation and AWS CDK for infrastructure as code, whereas Azure uses ARM templates or Bicep. Each has its learning curve and ecosystem support.
That would definitely impact our decision-making process.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about hybrid scenarios. Azure has strong ties with on-premises solutions through tools like Azure Stack, which could be an advantage if we ever decide to go that route.
That could be important given our current setup.
Right. Both platforms have powerful tools, but understanding which fits better with your existing architecture and future plans is key. Plus, there's always the community support and third-party integrations to consider. Right. Plus, there's always the community support and third-party integrations to consider. Speaking of which, have you looked into the database solutions offered by Google Cloud and IBM Cloud?
Not as much as AWS and Azure, but I know Google Cloud has Bigtable, and IBM Cloud has DB2.
Yes, exactly. Google Cloud's Bigtable is a NoSQL wide column store that scales really well and is great for high throughput applications. On the other hand, IBM Cloud's DB2 is a relational database with a long history in enterprise environments.
That makes sense. The choice would depend on whether we need a NoSQL solution or a traditional relational database.
Absolutely. Another point to consider is how these databases integrate with other services within their respective clouds. For instance, Bigtable works seamlessly with Google Cloud Dataflow for real-time data processing tasks.
That could be a significant advantage for us if we're dealing with real-time data streams.
Definitely. Meanwhile, IBM Cloud offers robust integration with middleware and legacy systems through tools like WebSphere. This can be crucial if you're working in an environment where you need to maintain older systems while adopting newer technologies.
Integration with legacy systems could indeed be important for our team.
Exactly. Also, let's not overlook the security features provided by each service. IBM Cloud has strong encryption and compliance capabilities, which might be essential depending on our regulatory requirements.
Security is definitely a top priority for us.
Of course, both platforms have their strengths, so it's about finding the one that aligns best with your current needs and future growth plans. Of course, both platforms have their strengths, so it's about finding the one that aligns best with your current needs and future growth plans. Speaking of which, have you looked into the security features and compliance certifications among various cloud platforms?
Not extensively, but I know AWS and Azure both have a lot of compliance certifications.
Indeed, AWS leads the pack with numerous certifications like SOC 130, ISO 27001, and HIPAA HITRUST for healthcare. Azure also covers a broad range including DPI and FedRAMP for government use.
That's good to know. Compliance is becoming increasingly important for us.
Absolutely. Google Cloud and IBM Cloud aren't far behind either. Google Cloud offers compliance with PCI DSS for payment card information, while IBM Cloud has strong support for financial services through certifications like FINRA.
Those specific certifications could be very relevant for our projects.
Exactly. The key here is to ensure that whatever platform you choose can meet your specific regulatory requirements out of the box or with minimal customization. Plus, don't forget about the built-in security tools each provider offers. Things like encryption at rest and in transit, identity and access management, EAM, and threat detection.
EM and encryption definitely play a big role in our security strategy.
Right. And it's worth noting how proactive each provider is with security updates and patches. AWS, for example, provides automated patch management through Systems Manager, while Azure has Security Center to monitor threats across your resources.
Automated patch management would save us a lot of manual work.
Definitely. Each cloud provider has its own suite of tools to help manage security effectively, so it's crucial to evaluate which ones fit best with your team's expertise and operational processes.